So right now we'll be watching Ōoku, The Inner Chambers, episode 5. And I don't really have much to say before we get into the episode, so now into the episode. Though his anger is understandable. Wow. Yeah, he did seem to be enjoying himself a bit too much there. Committed seppuku. I mean, where was this thought process before? Oh yeah, he never spoke about it? Yeah. Ooh. No, well, I'm pretty sure it's also not necessarily how we think. Oh, because of his refusal. Well, I mean, he could still make his own decisions. It's not like, you know, you forced him to do this. Yeah. If only he had just not gone. But his fate was sealed the moment they agreed to go there. Both make sense. Like, he did what he thought was right, but it wasn't. I don't think so. Oh, she's not actually gonna get him killed, is she? Oh, she's changed somewhat. Oh. Okay. Well, I mean, she's still a product of whatever this is, so... Joyful things and punishments? Ooh. Oh, it's a form of humiliation. Oh, he's gonna make a really pretty lady. The one that she had cut. It's so crazy how she doesn't understand they're in the same situation. She didn't choose to be stuck there, and neither did he. He's gonna wear it. What else is there? He can't refuse. Oh. Well, I mean, I can't say these guys don't deserve it, but I mean, Arikoto definitely looks the best, I would say. But like, oh yeah, he hasn't arrived yet. Okay. Oh, when it happened. Hmm? Oh, I've heard of that tale. They ignore him for years and then this. Right in front of her. Kasuga. Okay, she's obsessed. The fact that she can hug Kasugawa and everything, it's after she saw what she caused. It's cutting her hair. Oh, she probably thinks she's gonna kill her. Ripped away from the only home she's ever known, forced to play this game. Oh, she's probably 14 here. I mean, for one reason or another, Kasugawa did tell her to not leave the first wing. So I'm assuming this is after. Aww. Pretty big baby. Now, did her daughter really die, or did Kasuga kill her? Oh. So she really was born stillborn. She's attempting to hide all that pain. He's probably the prettiest lady there. Oh. No white face powder. Oh, wow.
でござりましょう。鴨字もこれ、ご覧の通り。そなたが来るといつも境外。皆の者、もうよい。いや、まあなんと、上様とどちらが女かわからぬの。カスが、そっちもじゃ、おまんもじゃ、とっとと下がれと言っておろう。
Oh, he stayed.
下がれと申しておるでは。
They're not gonna reenact, like, make her act like the man and take advantage of him, are they? Is he gonna hug her?
今まで私は、自分は、生まれてきた人間の苦しんでいる。助けになりたい。と自分は、私は生きてき。そして自暴自棄になり、心まで捨てようとしたという浅はか。なんで気づかんかったのか。私が救えるのは、救わなければならないと目の前におられたんや。私の目の前で苦しんではる方が。
Oh shit, she said his name. He's accepted his name now. Oh, and he's acknowledging her womanhood. Oh, a year later. She had his child? Oh. He's a manly man. He is very skilled. Whoa. Oh. No, it is a lecture. Mm.
私もそれは嬉しいことや。ないと以前言うてたの。いや悔しい。笑ったのですか？何故？この島に
She's dressed like a woman.
長崎のそうよ。訴状日本にとどまることのような厳しい条件。飲む。千年アンダー我が国とのボイにカゴの中に入れられ、外の世界から見えぬ予感の移転をもって。
Whoa.
ズラ放送の流行。当分収ま。もう一家に一つすることは行庫百姓ばかり世継ぎにしなれ藩が次々とはまた好都合。
What?
世のうちには幕府有力な大名が名家を取り潰すことから養子を取ろう。幕府の許しが
And she won't allow it.
さなければ良いだけのこと。どうじゃどうじゃ。血の方が正勝より待つ。そのご聡明さおられまする。ちっとも嬉しゅうない。上様。
Was he though, considering how she was conceived?
私はこの暮らしに不満はをかこつ者同士。そちが話してくれる江戸一退屈しのぎになる。様、ありまする。ありことにござります。ありこと。はい。ただいま戻ります。
Oh wow. I wonder if it's like an every night thing or just every so often.
ありこと。聞いていたのであろう。わしを嫌いになったりしないかえ。
Well, you're like the only woman there, so... What did you like about me? Oh.
私が上様を嫌うなどとそのようなことがあるわけがござります。かもじも以前そなたが怒って根を出して天右衛門に買って。
Oh. Yeah. That she's changing. Yeah, I'm surprised she didn't. Did she finally die? Oh shit, okay. I guess.
わしだって心得てこのなりの時はいろいろ文句を申しておったがは静かなものよ。なら良いのでござります。
Her foot looks weird.
ありことの目が悲しそうじゃ。わしが意地の悪い言い方をしたからか。ありこと。どうしようなどとお考えになっているあなたが愛おしゅうてならぬのやないか。
Oh, calling her Lady Chia. That's probably an issue. Yeah, she's not gonna like that.
そんなことは良い。そんなことありことおそばに召されていまだに上様にご解任の兆しは由々しきこと。ここまでの苦労か。まったく。
Oh gods. What is she planning now? No, you're awake, my nudes. Or at the very least, you lifted your head up. That's an improvement. So this episode finished off the first part of Arikoto's story, from having first been an abbot, then forced into the Ōoku, and then finally accepting his liege, and vice versa. And then we see a time jump to a year later, already having been very well established with each other, and with the Ōoku itself. In seemingly every episode, there has to be, in some shape or form, a certain depiction of sexual assault, whether it be played for, with the current shogun's case, a sort of comedic, liberating lens, since she is the one who chooses who to sleep with and when. She doesn't confine herself to her bedchamber, to basically every single episode after that to be 100% non-consensual. Now, I had always assumed that when it came to this liege's first time in the Ōoku, which resulted in her getting pregnant, I had assumed that simply a male had been called into her bedchamber, regardless of the fact that probably neither one wanted to do anything. They did what they had to do, and then she ended up pregnant. Not consensual, but also not blatantly one side over the other. They would both more than likely be against the idea, but be forced to do it. But the fact that it happened in one of her very first rebellions against Kasuga, it was both surprising yet not surprising. Surprising in the sense that I didn't think it was going to happen in that moment, and I assumed that Kasuga was going to find her before anything happened, but also not surprising considering the fact that, well, since the first episode, it's just been a bunch of assault after assault after assault, really not getting one episode of break from it. But also the fact that that so-called man didn't even care, regardless, if she was in fact a man or a woman, because he at first thought she was a man, because of the way she was dressed. But the fact that it was just so common that they would just take advantage of any weaker-looking, prettier guy, and that he just happened to have the fortune of finding the one male in there who wasn't a male but was in fact a woman, it really did just show the depravity of that place. And although Kasuga did eventually find her, and then when I saw that she had stabbed him, although she was down to her last layer of clothing, I still held some hope that maybe she had killed him before he did anything, but the sight of the blood coming out from her legs proved otherwise. And she had killed him after the fact. And she had said the infamous lines of, "He caused pain to his liege, so he had to die," which then started the tradition of every single female shogun after her to have to do the exact same thing with the first male. The fact that it stemmed from an assault was very surprising to me. I did not expect it to come from an assault. Like I said earlier, I expected it to come from the very first man summoned to the bedchamber, and he would be the one to be killed. I did not think it came from such a dark origin. There does seem to be a lot of Stockholm Syndrome going on, stemming from the liege and then Arikoto. After living so many years at peace with her mother and her nanny, right in front of her face, they were killed. And yet, after she saw that and her multiple attempts at resisting, years later, she still ended up loving Kasuga, the very woman associated with the very man that caused everything. Although having no other female to turn to but the very woman that caused her this pain, and also given her young age, it's understandable that she would then attach herself to her, because really she had no other option. There were no other females in the Ōoku besides her. And also, on that note, I know she's old, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, but how exactly is Kasuga so assured in the fact that nothing will happen to her? She never seems to worry about that. She just goes wherever she wants, she acts the way that she wants, but yet she's not afraid of anything happening to her. When it's been proven time and time again that these types of people in the Ōoku, due to their anger, their resentment, their frustration, their discontentment, and just in general mania, they don't discriminate, they don't care. They're gonna get you if they want to get you.
Somebody do something to me, I do something to them. That's just common sense.
So you believe in getting even?
Hell to the yeah. If they got me, I gotta get them. Yeah, that's what it is. Well, when you get and got, and somebody done got you, and you go get them, when you get them, everybody's gonna get got. So what I'm trying to explain to you is I don't care who done got me, I'm gonna get them first. You get me, I'm gonna get you.
Yeah, she doesn't seem concerned at all. It could be because she is in such a high position that they wouldn't dare do anything. But also on that note, maybe she has had stuff happen to her, just that they never show it outright. But again, I'm just surprised. And the fact that Arikoto ended up being what more or less changed and saved her. He offered her a hug and referred to her as a woman. He didn't refer to her as a man. He even complimented her and gave her the robe that she gave him. It looks far better on you than it does me. And although they both end up falling in love with each other, it wasn't a happy one. Because again, it was forced. She was forcibly ripped away from her mother, forced into the Ōoku and dressed like a man, and never referred to herself as a woman. She always had to act like a man. And he, being the abbot, was forced to stay in the castle and then be a part of the Ōoku. Neither one had a say in it, so as sad as their predicament is, they're still trying to make the most of it while being in there. They each found a little bit of salvation in each other, which resulted in both of them changing. He finally found out his supposedly true calling, though I would argue it's not, because again, he was forced in there. Had he not been forced to stay in the castle, he would have been out continuing to help others. It isn't to say that she isn't worth saving and she isn't someone that he should worry about. It's just that he could help her and yet still help others. But of course, we're never gonna see that because they're both in the same situation. They're both forced to stay in there and be unhappy. But at the very least, they can find a small amount of happiness together. Similar to all the attendants in the Apothecary Diaries, specifically the ones in the rear palace, since a majority of them were either sold from slavery or forced to work in there due to debt. Though their predicament is not ideal considering how they got there, they still try to find some enjoyment in it. Because if you're miserable in a miserable place, you would go insane. As terrible as any situation is, you have to find the very, very small amounts of happiness that you can get and hold on to it to keep your sanity. And I know it sounds dramatic, but at the very least to me it does seem true. Because what would any of them gain from being miserable being in that place? They're already in the situation, they're already forced to be there, they can't leave. In the case of the Apothecary Diaries, most of those women can't leave until a few years. And in the case of the people in the Ōoku, they can never leave. So really, there's nothing to gain with being miserable in a miserable situation. You have to at the very least try to make do with what you can in what is now your entire life. I guess a type of comparison I could make could be in the situation my dog Candy's in. As you can see, here she is. And I say that because, well, one, last year, due to a previous vet's malpractice, her eyes started getting really, really white. And it was concerning because it looked like she was going blind. So I took her to a different vet. And so they operated on her and they had to take her left eye out. Her right eye is still there. She can still see, not as well as before, but she can still see. And then about 2 months after that, I noticed that she had accumulated quite a few tumors on her stomach. And as soon as I noticed them, I took her to the vet. They operated on her, got all her tumors out, and spayed her. And she spent over 10 days at the vet, and then she came home. And also, due to her advanced age, since she's 13 years old, she ended up having some issues with her spine, and now her back legs don't work. Like, I don't know if you can see. You see? They shouldn't be this flimsy. She can still move them. She still has feeling in her legs, just that she doesn't have any strength in them. But considering everything that she's gone through, her past 2 surgeries, the fact that she went from having working legs to both of her hind legs not working anymore, and her having to drag herself all over the place, one would assume she'd be depressed, but she was never once depressed. She's happy, she's making the most of her situation. Sure, she can't see that well anymore, and nor can she walk as well as she used to. She has to drag herself all over the place now, but she's still as happy and as active as ever. She could be just depressed, sitting there, all sad, withering away, and ended up leaving sooner than I'm hoping. But instead, she's not. She's happy. She's making the most out of what really is a sad situation, but she's making the most of it.
Judy, what are you doing?
And over a year later, she's still going strong. The vet says she has a very strong heart. Although one concerning thing is that now, recently she had a very bad bout of diarrhea for a few days. And as soon as I noticed that there was blood in one of them, I immediately had my mom call the vet. And after the vet asked a series of questions like, how is she? Is she eating? Is she still the same? And we're like, yeah, like she never acts sick. That's the thing with her. She never acts like she's sick. She could be sick, but you couldn't tell because she acts normal. So the vet said, all right, bring her in tomorrow early in the morning. I'll check her in first thing in the morning. So I said, okay, because we had called her around 5:50 and she gets off at 6. And in order to get to her, it takes about 30 to 40 minutes. And she was already leaving at that point. And since she was acting normal and she wasn't bleeding profusely or anything, she said there's a need for concern, but not an alarming amount of concern yet. Because she's fine, she's not acting any different, she's not vomiting, she's not bleeding out really badly. So just bring her the next day and I'll check her out. So she checked her out. She gave her some medication for her diarrhea. Turns out one of her anal glands is infected because of said diarrhea. Since she keeps trying to push when she goes to the bathroom, but there's nothing really to push because it's diarrhea, she ended up causing herself an infection. But she gave her medication already. That's been 3 days and it's already working. And then after that, we scheduled an appointment for an ultrasound. Since during her examination, she said that she felt a bump on her lower back around this area, like around here. And she said that what's alarming about that is the fact that what I'm feeling, I don't know if it's just a bump. I don't know if maybe her kidneys or her liver's inflamed. I won't know that for sure until we get an ultrasound. So this Tuesday she's gonna get an ultrasound. We're gonna find out exactly what it is, hopefully, and we're gonna go from there. If she needs another surgery, she's gonna get another surgery. And again, although she's having these health issues as of late due to her old age, she never lets that get her down. And I know it's a strange comparison, cause I know people are gonna be like, well, Judy, like, that's a dog. We're talking about people. Fictional people, but still people. Because there are people who still go through this, or did go through this in the past. And I'm like, yes, it's true. But you could end up making a terrible situation even worse for you if you just wallow in your own misery there. Or, at the very least, try to find just any silver lining to try to make it more bearable. And hopefully the days you spend in that place will be better. Because, again, the men in the Ōoku can never leave. They can have anger issues about it, but they should at least try to find something, any small thing, to make it less miserable for themselves. And also, I'm concerned for Lady Chie. Since Kasuga isn't happy with the fact that her and Arikoto have been together for a year, and yet she's not pregnant yet, I'm concerned that what if she ends up forcing Lady Chie to take on another man, or forcing another man into Lady Chie's bedchamber in order to see if he can get her pregnant, causing her to relive her trauma all over again. Right now, she's knowing the first piece of happiness she's had since she was a little girl. Arikoto is her happiness. If anything happens to him, she will not recover from that. So I'm hoping that Lady Kasuga isn't gonna force another man on her, and also isn't gonna kill Arikoto, or Gyoke by extension, for whatever reason she has. But also the fact that it's set in ancient times, and considering the fact that she gave birth to a baby who was stillborn, there's no telling really what's the issue, or if it's just not time yet, because they could be trying for a year, but she doesn't know if they're using some sort of protection, or if they just haven't had any luck yet. It could happen the next day, it could happen the next year. She's still young enough to bear children, so I don't really see the cause for concern yet. I also have expected Kasuga to say something towards Lady Chie's mother before she killed her, since Chie had said that her mother said that her father was a lord from a distant land. I have expected Kasuga to say, how dare she lie? How dare she be ashamed to let you know that your father is the honorable Lord Iemetsu? That's like the one thing I'm glad she didn't do, because I have expected her to say something like that. They all really live in terrible situations. I'm sure Lady Kasuga has a story behind her. And also, I forgot how the saying goes, but basically the saying is something akin to, beware the one who's the oldest in a place where people die young. Because likely they've had to do things to survive in order to get to such an advanced age in a place where usually people are killed off young. And also I'm curious, since the first hour and 20-minute episode, we haven't seen the current Shogun again. And it's not that I'm disliking Arikoto's story right now, because it is part of their history. But I'm just curious to know how many more episodes it's gonna be with them, because there's only 10 episodes. We're already gonna be on episode 6. I'm kind of really hoping to see more of the current Shogun. But I'm assuming it's the same way in the manga series. Because I do want to see the current changes that's happening due to her more modernized way of thinking. I also assumed, given the fact that also because it's a pretty dark series, I wouldn't put it past them. I also assumed the fact that Arikoto stayed when Lady Chie told all of them to leave, and he was dressed as a woman, she was dressed as a man. I was hoping it wasn't gonna happen. Luckily it didn't. But I did think, I was like, wait, they're not gonna like sort of reenact what happened to her when she was 14, right? Since she was the man, he was the woman, was she gonna force herself onto him, and in a way, doing it for 2 reasons. 1, just to prove that she can and show power over this woman. And 2, is her hatred of womanhood due to the fact that she can't be a woman because of where she's at. She can't dress as a woman, she can't be happy as a woman. So seeing this man be dressed as a really beautiful woman, she would of course try to inflict some sort of pain on him. So I did assume that maybe they were gonna do some terrible reenactment of what happened to her, but fortunately they didn't. It's also sad the fact that one of the very first times that she ever defied Kasuga, something terrible happened to her. Like, out of all the days that anything could happen to her. But also, although she was brought there against her will, and Kasuga does want complete control over her, Kasuga of course knew what happens outside of the first wing. Or what could even happen inside the first wing. But the dangers that anybody could face outside of the first wing. So that's why she, of course, most likely told her to not leave the first wing, stay here. But since she failed to properly explain to her why, being the fact that do not leave the first wing, because if anyone sees you dressed like that, they might attack you. And if they see you seduces a woman, then something's gonna happen. So do not leave the first wing because you're gonna be attacked. And most likely, we won't get there in time to save you once you realize you're gone. And as sad as it is, had she heeded Kasuga's warning of not leaving the first wing, I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened. She could have been spared that pain for at least a little bit longer. Because again, she would have eventually been forced to be with a man at a later date. But it was just very unfortunate the fact that she ended up meeting a man who, just by seeing her, would do something. But regardless, that should have never happened to her, and she should have never been put in that position in the first place. Had she just lived with her mother in the outskirts like they had initially planned on it to be, this would never have happened to her. And it's terrible that it did. One last comparison I want to make, which they just briefly touch upon it, I believe, in both the manga and anime series. In the anime series, but I do know, because it's only one panel in the manga series, is the fact that since she was basically ignored by her father and Kasuga and everybody else who lived in Edo Castle, and they were fine to just let her and her mother live in peace in the outskirts in a house. But as soon as they realized they needed her, they went and took her away from her mother by force and ended up killing her. Seeing that happen really reminded me of Sacrifice of Princess and King and Beast, because a similar thing happens, where due to the fact that King Leonhardt's father was born a twin and he was the second born of the two, his father was in exile from the castle and no longer considered a prince because of the fact that they don't allow twins and he was the second born and he wasn't considered good enough. He lived the rest of his life fighting, and it wasn't until near the very end of his life that he ended up meeting the woman who would end up being the mother of his child. And they lived happily in the outskirts in the human world. But as soon as the current king of the Beast Kingdom was found to be sterile, they then searched for his twin brother due to the fact that they're twins. And once they found out that he in fact had a son, they went and took him away from his mother. We don't know what happened to his mother, at least in the manga series it doesn't clarify what happened to her. I don't know if they killed her, I don't know if they let her live and she just died of old age. But the fact that they purposely ignored them until they were needed and then they were ripped away from their loving mothers. That's what reminded me of that series. Because both Lady Chie and King Leonhardt would have lived very different lives had they not been ripped away from their mothers due to the cruelness of the noble and royal families they're related to. Who knows how different things could have been. They would have definitely lived very different, probably more peaceful lives. But also, in that same sense, Lady Chie would never have met Arikoto, and Leonhardt would never have met Serafi. Now having said all that, I can't wait to see what happens in the next episode.